was a tarnished piece of metal with the name Winans on it. Winans. Winans being an unusual name, he said, I thought perhaps you had family and relations in Iowa. Well, the very next day, Winans, without saying anything to his mother, went on his own road trip to Iowa. He went to that same small town, to that same restaurant, to that same dusty glass case in the corner. And peering inside, he saw several things. He saw 2 caps, a revolver, a sword, and there, on the next to the bottom shelf, a tarnished piece of metal, that same tarnished piece of metal that his colleague had seen, with his name on it, Winans. But his colleague had neglected to mention, or perhaps hadn't even noticed, that attached to that tarnished piece of metal was a frayed bit of leather. Well, Winans tracked down the restaurant owner there behind the counter, and he asked him if he could look at that piece of metal. Oh, gosh, said the owner, I haven't been in that case in years, if I can find the key. But he located the key. They got into the case. Winans picked up that piece of metal. Taking his handkerchief, he polished it up, and it polished up so cleanly it was definitely silver. And while he was doing that, the restaurant owner reached into the case to straighten out a few of the things. And as he did, he noticed that something had fallen down behind a cap on the very bottom shelf. And reaching behind the cap, he pulled out another tarnished piece of metal with a bit of frayed leather on it. Taking his own handkerchief, he polished it up. He said, there's something engraved on that. Well, there's something engraved on this, too. Maybe these are a match. And as he polished it up, he said, oh no, he said, it couldn't be a match. It's not the same name. Well, what is the name? Asked Winans. Well, it looks French, he said. It's F-L-O-U-R-N-O-Y. Flournoy, said Winans. Where did these things in this case come from, he asked. Oh, well, you know, said the restaurant owner, well, my grandfather, he fought in the Civil War for the Union, of course, and the things in this case was stuff he brought back from battle. All these things in this case are things he pulled off of dead Confederate soldiers. And when Winans told that man the story of his grandfather's silver spurs and his mother's only childhood memory of her father, the 2 men stood there in silence, each holding one spur, and bonded together by the war experience of their grandfathers. And at last, the restaurant owner, he took his handkerchief and he polished up that one spur again, and he handed it to Winans and said, remember me to your mother. When Winans went back to St. Louis and he handed those silver spurs to his now aged mother, Minnie looked down at them in her hand and then just held them to her chest for the longest time. And Winans later said he noticed then for the first time he saw a kind of peace pass over her face that he had not seen before. Well, I was about 4 years old when I met for the first and only time my great-grandmother, Minnie. Being only 4 years old, it was hard for me to understand that this wizened-up, wrinkled-up old lady sitting next to me on the couch had ever been my age. And of course, I didn't know at the time that she had been just about my age when she had watched her father with those shiny spurs turn around, walk down the lane, get onto a horse, and ride out of her life. And even if I had known it, I probably wouldn't have had any real appreciation for it. But now, 40-some-odd years later, I do have that appreciation. For I've read the diary that her father wrote, and I know the man with whom she did not grow up. And also because my own father, Winans' son, Minnie's grandson, a man of very few words when it comes to family matters, saved up all of his words to give me a lifetime of stories. I can't remember now why he first told me the story of Minnie and the silver spurs, what prompted it, but I very, very clearly remember what he told me afterwards. He said, "The grief of war is not only visited on those who fight and die, but often on their family for generations to come. And sometimes, Beth, sometimes it's your own enemies who will bring you peace." Now I'm old, my sight is hazy, but in memory clearly see Once I knew mine enemy's story. Enemies will